Welcome to the Christian Men at Work podcast, where I interview men from all walks of life with varying job titles who have one thing in common. They are all choosing daily to live out their Christian faith through their work, and because of that, they are leading, prospering, glorifying God, and experiencing joy and purpose in their work. And you can too. Welcome, Men at Work, to episode 29. Before I introduce my guest today, I wanted to make a few comments. First of all, a reminder that my book, Jesus is at Work, is available in audio format through Audible. So I also have a free video that you can watch related to the book if you want to kind of check that out first. And you can get a link to that through my website, davehilgendorf.com. But if you are not currently a subscriber to Audible, they have a deal where your first book is free when you sign up. So if you decide to sign up, you can get my book for free. And it's about having joy and purpose at your work. I wanted to just ask you, if you can, to please share this podcast with others. There's 3 quick ways that you can do that. You can just tell someone you know about it. You can share it on your Facebook page when you're listening to this. You just click on the share button, and it's easy to do. And a third way is to, if you're in iTunes, you can click on ratings and reviews, and you can rate the podcast and give it a review, and that will help people find it. I wanted to thank any of you who contributed to my GoFundMe account to help pay for my participation in the Colson Fellows program that I have been a part of now for about a month. It's really been awesome. And I'm so thankful for the people who contributed to that. I was able to pay the fee for the program and purchase my initial books. I still have to raise a little bit more money to pay for the trip in May, the Wilberforce weekend, which is a part of the program, and some trips to Charlotte for our group that gets together. So you can, if you want to contribute to that, there's a link at my website, davehilgendorf.com. Let's get to my introduction of Bert Jones. Bert is a native of Rockingham County, North Carolina. He's been married to his wife, Susan, for 27 years, and they have 2 children now in college, David and Carolyn. Dr. Jones is a dentist by profession and has served in the North Carolina House of Representatives since 2011. He graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the UNC School of Dentistry. He's an active leader in the church and the community. His background in community service includes the board of directors of the Free Clinic of Rockingham County, the Rockingham County Board of Health, the board of directors of Pittsboro Christian Village, the Rockingham Council of Bible Education, Kewaunee's lieutenant governor and 3-time president, the Gideons, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, a volunteer youth coach, and others. He is an Eagle Scout and has served as a Scout leader. In the legislature, Representative Jones serves as chairman of both the House Health Committee and the House Elections Committee. He also serves on several other standing House committees, including Finance, Education, Agriculture, Judiciary, and Regulatory Reform. He has chosen to retire from legislative service when his 4th term ends at the end of 2018, and in January 2019, he'll begin serving as the state chaplain in North Carolina through the Capital Commission Ministry. And he's very much looking forward to that. So let's get right to our interview.
Hi, Bert. Thanks a lot for joining the discussion today, and I'm just going to jump right into the questions I have. And my first question is, when and how did you become a Christian?
Okay, well, thank you, Dave, and it is good to be with you this evening. And so I was blessed to be raised in a home by parents who taught me about God and took me to church. And so I became a Christian at a young age. When I was 8 years old, actually, I accepted the Lord at a local crusade. One of Billy Graham's contemporaries at the time, Grady Wilson, did a crusade in my hometown of Reidsville, the football stadium, and I think at that point I heard the gospel message and understood that I was a sinner and I needed a Savior. And so I accepted the Lord, and as I got older, I recommitted myself many times, and so I just feel very blessed that I was able to know the Lord from a young age.
That sounds great. From there, I know more about the end of your story, which is you being a dentist and a legislator, but maybe if you could fill in just a little bit of the gap before you became a dentist. Since our podcast, spends a lot of time talking about work and how faith is integrated with work, did you have any jobs before you became a dentist?
I did. I just started really as a boy. First of all, just mowing yards and bagging groceries at the grocery store, and then by the time I was in high school, I worked some at the local Holiday Inn. I did some work there in the restaurant, just bussing tables and doing room service and things like that. And then for about 3 summers, while I was in college, I worked for the local Parks and Recreation Department, just fixing ball fields and mowing and picking up trash and things like that. That was good. And then I had a job a couple of summers working in a local can plant here. I think that was at the time that was the highest paying job I ever had, probably the first job I ever had that paid more than $3 an hour. And then I was fortunate to be able to finish college a semester early. I had a semester off between college and dental school, and I had a couple of jobs in. One thing I did, actually, I was a substitute teacher. I taught everything from kindergarten to high school, and I was only probably about 4 years older than the seniors in high school at the time, but I enjoyed that. It gave me a little classroom experience from the teaching side rather than the student side, and then I also did some work traveling with a organization that did inventory in grocery stores and drug stores, and we would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes and drive 3 or 4 hours some other place in the state or in North Carolina or in Virginia. And so I had a lot of work experience, and it was all good for me. I learned about work. My parents really taught me a good work ethic. They both came up during the Depression. They knew what it was to not have a lot, and they really taught my sister and I a good work ethic. So I enjoyed all those jobs and was able to earn a little bit of money. And since I did go to college and dental school, it was nice to have some money to help pay for that.
Well, that's great. And yeah, my story is very similar. And I think it's you get so much out of having those early jobs. And it's a good opportunity to do some different things too, along with, learning a work ethic and learn how to manage a little bit of money. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. So you went on to become a dentist. So what made you decide to become a dentist?
Well, I think from a fairly young age, and certainly by the time I was a teenager, I was really thinking that I wanted to be some kind of doctor. And I just thought about different aspects of medicine or dentistry. I knew some of the local dentists in Reidsville here where I grew up, and I just ended up gravitating in that direction. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to work with people in some kind of a medical or a dental aspect, and I enjoyed owning the practice and kind of working for myself in that way. And so I think there were a lot of aspects that attracted me to it, and I've never had any regrets. It's a great profession. Met a lot of good people along the way. And, I like to eat and I like to smile, so you need your teeth. So it is a good profession. And so I went to college and dental school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Had the opportunity to come back to my home county to work. That worked out really well. My dad passed away the year after I graduated from dental school, so I was here at home along with my sister was still in the county, so we were on hand to help take care of my mom, and it's just really worked out. I've lived here for all my life, and Rockingham County is a good place to live. There are a lot of good people here, and yeah, I feel very blessed.
So you're a native of Rockingham County, and you basically lived your whole life there. And not only have you been a businessman and a healthcare provider, you've also been a legislator, which we'll talk about in a little bit, representing District 65.
Right.
And you've also been very involved in a whole host of different organizations and positions, which I listed in the introduction. Why do you think it's important to be an active leader in your community?
I think it's important to just be a part and try to be a positive influence in your community. I think we all, appreciate having a good quality of life, and it's easy for us to take for granted a lot of the things that we really do have in this country, and we have an opportunity to serve. And I can say I've really made a lot of good relationships and met a lot of fine people along the way by serving. And God created us to serve, and there's a lot of opportunities out there where you can use your gifts and talents to benefit others and to benefit your community. And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being active. And like I said, I've been blessed to meet a lot of fine folks along the way in doing that.
I'm a little curious about one of the items that or organizations you've been involved in, the Rockingham Bible Education Council. Is that am I saying that correctly?
Rockingham Council of Bible Education, RCBE for short, but yes.
Can you tell us a little bit of what is that all about?
It's a great organization. We have been very blessed in the Reidsville community and now throughout Rockingham County for almost 100 years. There has been a Bible program active in the public schools here. And basically the Rockingham Council of Bible Education is the fundraising arm for that. So the state dollars do not pay for the Bible teachers that teach in the public schools. We do raise the money from private community, from churches, businesses, individuals. But it just gives opportunity for to have a Bible teacher at the middle school and the high school level. There are elective classes that they can study the Bible, and they teach the Bible as literature, as history. Just try to teach the Bible for what it is. At the elementary school level, there are actually as a bus ministry, and so parents will sign a waiver. Their children actually leave the campus for a short period of time. They usually do it once a week or sometimes every 2 weeks, and they'll be on the Bible bus with the Bible teacher. When I was coming up, it was actually done in the auditorium of the school, but some years ago it was moved off campus to be a bus program. So I believe we're coming up on the 100th anniversary here in about 4 years. And so it is something that's been in operation here for a long time. And before I was served in the legislature, I was on the board of directors for the Rockingham Council of Bible Education for about 15 years, and I served as president for 8 of those years. So it's a great organization. It exists for a very, very good purpose, and I know a lot of young people have had the opportunity to learn about the Bible because of it.
Well, that's great. And I noticed when we visited the state legislature, they said a prayer in the beginning. And I mean, if all you did is watch the news, I mean, you'd think that, the separation of church and state is just something that it's not. And that's a whole other discussion. I guess we don't have to go into all that, but it's refreshing anytime I hear something like that. And I've also heard about some other bills around the country that have been bannered about this last year involving having the Bible as part of the curriculum and having In God We Trust at the public schools. So anytime I hear something like that, I'm encouraged.
Well, me too. And it is very encouraging. I know there are programs out there, and like I said, I think we were blessed to probably have one of the first right here in Rockingham County in North Carolina, and so it is a very good thing.
Now, I saw that you are an Eagle Scout and you volunteered as a scout leader, I'm assuming with your son. And, of course, Boy Scouts, I guess, has announced they're renaming themselves the Scouts since they're admitting girls. So there's obviously a lot of change that's been going on in that organization. Are you still involved at all with Scouts? And I guess my other question is, what are your thoughts on the future outlook for that organization?
Yeah, so I was a Cub Scout, I was a Boy Scout, and I just realized when you brought it up that I think I had my Eagle ceremony 40 years ago, almost to the day. It was early May, 40 years ago, so I'm aging myself. I'm not actively involved in scouting other than as a legislator, I've presented a lot of flags to Eagle Scouts. I go to Eagle Scout ceremonies when I'm invited to do so. And, there are a lot of good local people and local leaders that are involved with the organization. And I actually went to an event this weekend where I was presenting a flag at a school. I saw one of the scout leaders, and he was talking about exactly what you're talking about, the changes that unfortunately we see happening, I think, in the scouting ranks. He's actually working now as a leader with I think it's called the Trail Scouts, and it's a Christian-based organization with the same type values that the Boy Scouts have always held to since 1910 when they were established in the United States. So, I don't know what the future of scouting is. I think there will be people that will continue to participate. There'll be some, I think, that will probably choose the Trail Scouts or a different program. So I guess time will tell. But certainly, things are changing, it looks like, with the Scouts.
Yeah, I think it's called Trail Life USA, and I had a chance to speak with and meet Mark Hancock, I think is his name, the founder of that. It does seem like it's a good organization, and I think there's something similar for the girls as well. But anyway, I don't know what's all involved with getting an Eagle Scout, but I know it's a big deal, and so I think that's great that you did that. I had an uncle who got an Eagle Scout, and I always thought that was so cool. So.
It was a good experience. I learned a lot, and also did the Guide and Country program, which was a really good experience as well. So it's been a good program, and I definitely enjoyed it, and I think I benefited from it.
What do you think of all the different local organizations you've been involved in over the years? What would you say has been the most rewarding for you?
Well, I'm going to end up answering the question with the short answer is what we talked about earlier, the Rockingham Council of Bible Education, just because of the nature of what we do and just the lives that have been impacted with the Word of God. I think that would have to be at the top of the list. But I've been blessed to be involved with a lot of really fine organizations. Kiwanis Club, 28 years. Kiwanis does a lot of good things for folks and children in particular. It's a great service organization, as is the Rotary, the Lions, all these civic clubs. They do a lot of fine work in their communities, and so certainly that was a good thing. We have a free clinic here in Rockingham County that is we started 20 years ago, where we provide medical, dental care to people locally. It's just been a blessing to be a part of that over the years. So there's a lot of good opportunities out there to serve. But to answer your question, I would have to put the Rockingham Council of Bible Education at the top. Just the nature of what that organization does, it's really been a blessing.
All right. Well, I just kind of recently started asking this next question because I've tried to keep the podcast kind of focused around work, but I do have to ask anyone who's been married a long time. I like to ask when I can. You've been married 27 years. You've got 2 children in college. So what advice can you give to the other men listening on how to have a great marriage and a great family?
It's very, very simple to say. I think just putting the Lord first, just learning what the Bible teaches about marriage and family, and just practicing it, just loving your wife, loving your children, just be honest. I think any any relationship is built on honesty and trust. And, the thing of it is, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. So be honest, be always ready to forgive. We just think about how the Lord has forgiven us for so much and how we should be ready to forgive one another, and just to show mercy and grace and love. There again, as God has shown to us. And I think sometimes people tend to take for granted the ones that are the closest to us. And we go out in the community and we're good with our friends and all, but I think it's important that we not take our spouses for granted, not take our children for granted, and just make sure we spend quality time with them. And like I said, just put the Lord first. And there's plenty in the Bible that teaches us how to treat our wives and how to treat our children. And if we'll follow that, that is the prescription for a happy marriage and family life.
Excellent. I'm glad I asked it, because those were all very good stuff. So after serving as a dentist in your community, you decided to run for the state legislature. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I had been involved in local politics, and I did serve as a county commissioner. And honestly, when that was over, I didn't have any plans to run for office again. But I just felt like the Lord called me to run. In 2010, we were really looking for someone who would be a good conservative Christian candidate to run. We felt like we needed a change, and I was one of the people that was really probably helping to try to recruit someone. And, it kind of sometimes comes down to, in the end, you say, Lord, is it I? A lot of people were coming to me and encouraging me to run, which was very humbling, very flattering. But it wasn't something that I had really set my cap to do. It wasn't something that I had set out to do. I had a good life and a good fulfilling life, and I was busy and all that. But the Lord just really called me to run, and I just really credit the whole thing to the Lord. It was interesting at the time. I had been a Republican for probably at least 25 years. And for a brief period of time, I decided to leave the Republican Party and actually become unaffiliated. I was a little bit, somewhat frustrated, I think, back around 2009 with some of the choices that were coming out of Washington. I just felt like that the Republicans were not really being true to their conservative roots. They weren't really practicing what they were preaching as far as limited government. They were running up the debt. They were, the stimulus package and all this that really kind of started under the Republicans. And so I got a bit frustrated. And at the time, I tell people that if I had been planning to run for office, I did the dumbest thing that anybody could ever do, because at the time, of course, we had the straight party ticket voting in North Carolina. And so when I ran that first race, an independent candidate or an unaffiliated candidate had never won running for the state legislature. And so obviously a lot of people probably thought I didn't have a chance. And but I just said, well, I knew the Lord called me to run. I didn't know whether he called me to win or not. But the fact that we won, and we won decisively, we defeated an 8-term incumbent. We won by 12 percentage points. We probably lost an additional 4 or 5 percentage points because of the straight ticket voting. And I just attribute all that to the Lord. I mean, that was, it seemed like a miracle at the time. But we really had a lot of people helping us. I had a lot of people helping. We got about 3,000 signatures to get my name on the ballot. People helping at the polls. And it really is, I told a group this weekend, it has been a team effort all along the way. But there's just no question in my mind. I look back and I think, really, why did I leave the party at the time that I did? I ended up rejoining, a year later. But I really think the Lord did it just to show himself the one that really did it, because what happened that year was something that was pretty amazing, and I can tell you it wasn't me. But with God, all things are possible.
That's great. I didn't realize that about your party affiliation. It just reminds me of it. God wanting Gideon to get the numbers down to 300 just to
right.
so there'd be no question. Yeah.
Well, there was no question in my race, and the same principle applies. Absolutely.
Well, that is great. Well, if we fast forward ahead, now you served 4 terms, and you've now decided to not run for re-election, despite the fact that you've won with large margins since being there. And I wish more politicians would term limit themselves. Myself, it's another discussion, but I know you will be sorely missed by me and other voters in the district. Why did you decide not to run again?
Well, as I said, back in 2010 when I first ran, it was just really a matter of prayer. Then I felt like the Lord was leading me to run, and I've done that every term to just see. I went into it really believing that I really wasn't called to be a career politician or long term. I really, like you, I wish that Washington was term limited. I wish that Raleigh was term limited. I just really feel strongly about being a citizen legislator, and it's just not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, or at least I just didn't feel like that was the Lord's calling for me. I think it was right for a season. I have no regrets. It's been a great run for 8 years. I've made so many great relationships. I think we've accomplished some good things to put the state on a much better path, but each time I have prayed about it, and I've also just been praying that the Lord would raise up the right person to come after me at the right time. And this year, He did. There's a fine conservative Christian named Jerry Carter who is going to run for the seat this time, and I'm just so excited about that. I feel like the Lord is raising him up for the same reasons, same motivations as He did for me, and I'm just at total peace with it. I know we're going to talk a little bit about my next role at the General Assembly, but I'm just so excited about that, and I just feel like after 8 years, I tell people, George Washington established 8 years when he served as president, and I thought that was a pretty good pattern to follow, and I really felt when I won my 4th term, I just kind of felt in my heart it probably was going to be my last, but I was open to continuing to pray about it. But things just kept falling into place just to help to really confirm to me that it was the right time for me. There are a lot of things that I still want to accomplish in other areas. It is a very time and labor-intensive job if you do it right, and just the idea of being able to spend more time with my family and just other interests in life, and still want to be active and involved. But I just truly think that we're better off when people don't stay for too long. The longer you stay, people accumulate more power and things like that. And I do wish that there were term limits. I think it would be better if we had that. But, for me, it's just the right thing to do. I've never looked at myself first and foremost as a legislator. I'm proud that I've been able to serve. It's been an honor and a privilege and certainly a great responsibility, but I just think the time is right. And, again, I'm so excited about Jerry Carter. I think he's going to do a great job. And I just feel like the Lord has really confirmed to me that it's a good time for me not to run again.
Well, speaking of term limits, you have been a big supporter, really a leader in the effort to pass the Convention of States resolution here in North Carolina. And I mean, that's really how I became aware of you, because I'm a volunteer with that effort. And term limits is one of the 3 main things that COS wants to accomplish. Why do you feel so strongly about supporting that effort, and what is the current status of it?
Well, just briefly, I guess for introduction, if any of the listeners don't really know that much about the Convention of States, Article 5 in the United States Constitution provides for the ways to amend the Constitution. And it can be initiated by Congress, and it can also be initiated by the states. And that was very important to the founders. It was something that basically passed unanimously with the founders that signed the Constitution, because people tend to forget sometimes that the states created the federal government and not the other way around. You know, we live in a time where the federal government kind of lords over the states, and that's not at all what the founders envisioned. And so an Article 5 Convention of the States is just an opportunity for the states to get together for a meeting in which they could propose amendments to the Constitution, and that's all that would happen. They would propose amendments. And it would take, after amendments were proposed, of course, it takes 3/4 of the states, or 38 states, to actually ratify an amendment. And I think that's very important. It's a high threshold. It's good that it is. You know, the founders did not want it to be an easy task to amend the Constitution, but they also realized that, you know, it's a great document. It's one of the greatest documents in human history, but it's not perfect. It's not infallible. It's not inspired by God. It's not the Bible. And the problem, I think, today is that it's not so much the document, it's that it is misinterpreted. And I believe that it is time for the states to rein in the federal government. You know, you mentioned term limits. I think two issues in particular for me are the need for judicial restraint. We see, it's unfortunate, but I think we have people in black robes today that are ruling and lording over the people. And you know, we've had initiatives in North Carolina. The marriage amendment, for instance, passes a supermajority. You know, a judge with the black robe comes in and says, no, it's not going to be that way. And you know, that is not what the founders intended. That is not interpreting the Constitution. We've gotten to the point where, unfortunately, judges are making laws, and that is not their role. It's not their constitutional role. So there's a need for judicial restraint, and there's a need for physical restraint. And we could talk for the rest of the time about the national debt, but, you know, we're up over $20 trillion now. It's greater than the gross national product of the United States. And the house of cards is going to fall at some point. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that. And truly, the only way that I think the federal government will ever balance its budget and live within its means is if the states force that to happen. And it's unfortunate, but, you know, Congress just simply cannot do it. And to be honest with you, if Congress was doing the things that are going to have to be done in order for our country to go back and live within its means and save ourselves from bankruptcy, if they did those things, they would be voted out of office. And they know that. There are probably some unpopular decisions that are going to have to be made, but if they're not made, our country is going to go down in bankruptcy. And, you know, I think about our children and our grandchildren. One of the reasons that I ran for office, as you mentioned earlier, is that I do have 2 children. And I want for them to enjoy the blessings of liberty that our generation has had the opportunity to enjoy. And if they're in bondage and basically in slavery to debt, they will not be able to do that. So, you know, it's for these reasons that I am very passionate about the Convention of the States. I hear and I hear conservatives even that will come back and say things like, well, if this happens, we might lose our Bill of Rights, or we might lose the Second Amendment, or something like that. And I just tell people, I said, you know, if we're at a point where 38 states are ready to ratify something that takes away our Bill of Rights, it's over. I mean, it's over. And I think that the founders would literally turn in their graves if they recognized that they had given us this constitutional provision and we were not using it out of fear or for whatever reason. But I've been studying this issue for a long time, and I know there are a lot of well-meaning people out there, but I don't see any other way that we're going to fix the problems that are going to be necessary to fix in order to save this country unless the states that created the federal government step up to do it. And this is the constitutional way, and I truly hope that we will pass the resolution in North Carolina, and we'll have enough states to pass the resolution that we'll be able to see a convention relatively soon, because I think it's an urgent need.
Well, I totally agree, and I've heard a number of people speak very well about explaining convention of states, but I think maybe what you just gave was the best I've heard yet. It was very well said. I agree with you 100%, and I would love to spend the rest of our time talking about it, because I also am passionate about it, but I have some other questions I want to ask you, so I want to move on. Bert, can you talk about some of the accomplishments in the legislature that you are the most proud of?
Sure. For me, the top of the list are those things that I truly feel like will have eternal value. I think we have stood strong for the issues of life, issues of marriage, things that truly God has ordained. And for me, those are the most important things that we've done. Now, beyond that, I feel very good about the fact that as I leave after these 8 years, the state is in so much better shape than it was when we found it, when we came in January of 2011. From a fiscal standpoint, when we inherited a $3 billion budget deficit, we're now running budget surpluses. I could go down the list of, the North Carolina at the time we came in was truly, I think, as far as our government was concerned, we were the most liberal state in the South, from Texas to Virginia, and we had the highest unemployment, we had the highest tax burden, and we've seen a massive change. When we came in, I think North Carolina was ranked by the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan organization that looks at how favorable a state is for jobs, businesses, and we were at the bottom. We were like 46th. Now we rank 11th, and that's the biggest rise in the history of those ratings. So that just summarizes a little bit of the fact that North Carolina is a much more jobs-friendly, business-friendly, more prosperous state, and I think in that way we've been able to help the lives of a lot of people. We're not perfect. There's a lot of things left to do. But I do think that, when you go somewhere, you like to leave it better than you found it. And I can leave with confidence knowing that North Carolina is in a much better place than it was when we found it about 8 years ago. So, but back to the short answer, anything that we've done that has honored the Lord and has had eternal significance, I feel really good about that. Just some of the little things that we've done along the way. Just honoring Billy Graham, and what a life, and what a witness for the Lord that he was. And his statue is going to be at Statuary Hall in Washington as a result of our efforts. We've had an opportunity, I think, to honor the Lord and His people along the way, and I'm glad that we've done that.
I'm really excited about what you have done along with other legislators that you've served with, because it is quite a turnaround, and I appreciate your service very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Tell us about your new role that you're going to be taking on after you leave the legislature.
Well, I'm very excited. The Capitol Commission is a national organization that provides state chaplains in state capitals throughout the country. And I have had the opportunity to benefit and participate in that as a legislator now for my 8 years. And we have a wonderful program in North Carolina. We have weekly Bible studies. We have a chapel service once a week. We have monthly prayer breakfasts. The state chaplain organized the National Day of Prayer in Raleigh this past week. Election Eve prayer walks, just events that really just provides chaplaincy service in the Capitol community. based at the legislature, but also deals with the judicial system, the executive system. If the governor's interested, the lieutenant governor, the Supreme Court, whoever, this chaplain is available. And I have seen lives change. I've seen people truly benefit, growing in their walk with the Lord, people coming to know the Lord. And it's been a very encouraging program for Christian legislators, just to go down and be able to participate in a Bible study or a chapel service. So many, they come down and they say, well, I just didn't realize that something like that was going on. And I try to tell people back in my district, and I've had the opportunity to talk about it really all over the state, and I think God's people are very encouraged. You know, you always hear the bad, you hear the worst about politics and politicians and how bad everybody is, but I have to say I have met some of the finest people that I've ever met, and we do have some good, strong believers, Christian people that serve, and so it's certainly an encouragement to us. And so Brad Harbaugh is our current state chaplain, and he is being promoted to be the national president of the organization, and it's just been a blessing for me. Brad and I were sitting down in my office last summer, and we got talking, and he was telling me that he was going to be the national president. I was talking with him about the fact that I was planning to retire from the legislature, and one thing led to another, and he told me, have you ever thought about maybe applying to be the state chaplain and take my place? And so I did, and I'm really pumped about it. I'm very excited about serving in that role and just being able to continue the relationships that I've made in the Capitol community, and to hopefully be a good and effective witness for Christ. It's a tremendous opportunity, and again, just something else that the Lord has really, really opened up for me.
That's great, and it does sound very exciting. And again, it's another one of those things that doesn't get a lot of news, but I'm so glad to hear that it exists. So
absolutely.
So I want to spend the rest of our time talking about a few specific things about the issue of faith and work. What does living out your Christian faith through your work mean to you, and how have you specifically lived out your faith through your different work experiences that we've been talking about?
Well, I think it means everything. I mean, we are certainly commanded as Christians and encouraged to just not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. I think it was perhaps Spurgeon, and I'm sure others as well, saying that there's probably a lot more people that preach Christ than that live Christ, and we need to do both. But people, if we're going to be an effective witness to people in the world, they do need to see a difference in us. If we're going to be telling them that our faith is in Christ and what that means to us, hopefully we have something in our lives that they want, that they see a difference. And so I think it's just so important, when we're in the workplace, God has put us there. I mean, He's allowed us to have a job, and that we can provide for our families and all that, but He's also given us a mission field, if you will, just to go out and be able to share our faith, not only in word, but just in the way that we behave ourselves, the way that we treat others, so that hopefully people can see that there is a difference in us and the way things are often done in the world. And so I would just encourage our listeners, God has entrusted you with a job, and you're very blessed, but you have an opportunity to reach the people around you that other people may not have that opportunity. And just the opportunity to build relationships through your work, through your activities, through your community service, what it is that you're doing. As you build those relationships and people find out who you are and what you're all about, it is an opportunity, I think, to be a faithful witness and to be an ambassador for Christ. And that's really why we're put here. We're created to glorify God. And if we're going to glorify God, we need to be a faithful witness in the world.
What does the term work-life balance mean to you? You hear that term thrown around, and it seems like we're all busier than ever. Is it possible to have work-life balance? And if so, what does that mean to you?
I think so. I think, what it means to me, people, we can define work as, what we do to make a living, I guess, how we earn money. The Bible speaks of work and works as our deeds and our behaviors even. But just thinking about our work, as I said earlier, work is a blessing. And we need to be reminded that work is a good thing. I think sometimes work kind of gets a bad rap, and people are kind of conditioned to think that, work is bad and play is good. And, but there should be a balance. And hopefully, people have the opportunity to work in something that they can enjoy and make good relationships through that. But, work is life and life is work. And I think it makes it a whole lot better if you can go to work with the idea that you're not just on the treadmill, just doing it to earn a paycheck, but that God really does have a higher purpose for us in our work. And it's through our work that we're able to make relationships with other people and reach other people. And, I think when we look at it like that, it's a whole different perspective, and it's really a higher calling than just going out into the workplace to earn a paycheck. That's important too, and we're called to be providers for our families and all of that. So it is important, but hopefully we can see that there is a higher calling in work. God gave Adam work to do in the garden before sin was ever instituted. So work is a good thing. God established it. I believe that God is going to have work for us to do in heaven, and He's certainly given us work to do here on this earth. So I think we can have a balance. As far as a work-life balance, I think it is good to have other interests and things that you do, not just to go out and earn money, but hopefully some other things that you enjoy, or just spending time with your family, or maybe a hobby or a sport or something that you do to keep you physically active. And so I think all those are important. In life, hopefully we have a spiritual balance, and we have a physical balance, and we have a mental balance. And it can be challenging sometimes. Life gets busy, but I think if we're committed to it, we can do it.
Do you have a tip for sharing the gospel in the workplace or at your work?
Well, as I said before, I think first and foremost, it is really good you need to build relationships with people. I think we need to be careful sometimes, and not just when we first meet someone. Everybody does need to hear the gospel, and they need to hear it in word. But I think it's a lot more effective when we can build a relationship with someone and then just work it in. If people are getting to know you and you're becoming friends, and they see you are the way that you are, you're probably going to get around to talking about some things that are more important than just talking about, the weather or who won the ball game last night or things like that. Those are okay, but when you get around to talking about more important things, and you've established a relationship with someone, you can certainly get to the point where you can let them know that you are concerned about their soul, and that you can certainly find out if anybody has ever told them the gospel, and do they know that they're going to heaven, and if so, how do they know? And just let them know that you care enough about them that you want to make sure that they have been taught the true gospel. There's a lot of folks out there that think, if I can just be good enough, or I can be a little better than the next man, maybe I can work hard enough, I can earn my way in. They need to hear the gospel, that salvation is through faith alone, by grace alone, in Christ alone. And hopefully, as we build relationships with people and they're seeing Christ in our walk, then they're willing to talk to us. And as we build those relationships, I think we can more effectively share the gospel. So God gives us opportunities, and hopefully we take advantage of them when we can.
Do you have a favorite scripture or life verse?
Well, I have favorite scriptures. I think if I had to choose one that just really comes to my mind, probably when you say that, I think it would be Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And if we're really seeking our relationship with God first and foremost, that is the most important relationship in our life, first and foremost. And we talked about marriage earlier, and that was the second best thing I ever did, was to marry my wife. But the most important thing I ever did was to give my life to the Lord Jesus Christ and establish a relationship with God. And I think if we will seek Him and we will seek His will and His righteousness, then certainly He will take care of us, and these things will be added to us, and He will bless us, and He will use us for His glory, not for ours. So I think that's a great verse. It's part of the Lord's Sermon on the Mount, and there are a lot of other great verses too, but I think that's the first one that comes to mind for me.
A lot of us have long commutes. I know I do. I try to make the most of it. Is there any recommendation that you have for good things to listen to if you've got a long commute back and forth to work?
Yes, I actually certainly have had that opportunity going back and forth to Raleigh over the last 8 years. So for me, I really love to listen to the Bible Broadcasting Network. On my morning commute, there are really good messages on every hour, on the half hour. And I enjoy listening to Christian music. When my mind is being filled with things that are scriptural and things that are honoring to God, it just really sets the tone for the day. And so for me, I enjoy the fact that I can basically go anywhere in North Carolina, and certainly when I'm on my commute back and forth to Raleigh, I can always pick up BBN, and so I know there are other good Christian radio stations out there. For me, that's the one I usually listen to.
Do you have any final thoughts to share with our listeners before we wrap this up?
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's been a blessing just to be able to talk about our faith and just God's goodness and what He's done for us. And just give God the glory, great things He has done. I think we're very blessed to have been able to serve in the legislature, and like I said, it's been a big responsibility and a lot of work, but it has been a great blessing and an honor and a privilege, and it has given me the opportunity to meet a lot of fine folks such as yourself, and be able to speak about my faith in a way that an avenue that I didn't have before then. So, but thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great being with you.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you to learn more about what you're doing or talk with you, how would they go about doing that?
Probably the best way would be to go to the General Assembly website, www.ncleg.net, and just look me up under the members. We actually did have our own website, but since I'm not running for re-election, I did not renew this year, and so that recently expired. So I don't have that website up anymore. But as far as my contact information, my office information, email me. All that information is right there at the General Assembly website. So it does tell something about our legislative service and the committees we serve on and some of the bills we're working on, and it's very, very informational. But I would say for me or for any member, that would be a good place to start if someone wants to contact their member, www.ncleg.net, ncleg.net.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Men at Work, I hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as I have. We just heard about Bert Jones's journey being spirit-led and living out his Christian faith at his work. Each of our journeys are unique, but hopefully you've heard something in this episode to inspire you and give direction for your own personal daily work life. You can find links and other information from this show at davehilgendorf.com. Until next time, thanks and God bless.